welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a look at a stack of sources about a figure who I think stands as one of the great paradoxes of modern celebrity. We're talking about Richard Starkey.
Better known as Ringo Starr, of course.
Exactly. And it's an absolutely stunning profile when you dig into the raw numbers versus, the public perception.
It really is. I mean, Ringo is so often characterized as the least essential Beatle, right? The quiet one, maybe the luckiest one.
The luckiest one, yeah.
But our sources point to an estimated net worth by 2025 of around $350 million. He's achieved this just extraordinary longevity and financial stability, quietly outlasting almost all of his peers.
And to really understand that stability, you have to go back. The origin story is just so crucial. We're talking about a kid from Liverpool who didn't just have a tough childhood. He was, profoundly isolated by chronic illness.
Oh, completely. We have accounts detailing a ruptured appendix when he was only 6, and then a few years later, a crippling tuberculosis diagnosis at 13.
So he spent years, literally years of his childhood, in and out of hospital wards. He was totally disconnected from the normal rhythms of life.
And that isolation is really the key, I think. The mission for this deep dive isn't just to talk about drumming. It's to try and decode the career strategy, the life philosophy that allowed this sickly background boy to become a financial heavyweight.
We're looking for that surprising power, the power found in the steady backbeat.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with what feels like the most counterintuitive part of his whole story, his financial mindset. He became this massive financial outlier, yet all the evidence suggests he never, ever started playing music to get rich.
No, that's the core paradox, isn't it? For Ringo, music began as medicine, not as, commerce.
Medicine.
Yeah. When he was hospitalized with tuberculosis, the only distraction he had was a set of makeshift drums. They're fashioned from tin cans and cotton. So for him, rhythm was a necessity. It was a way to anchor himself, to stay sane in this incredibly isolated environment. His relationship with music was existential, not acquisitive.
Okay, so if he wasn't chasing the money, how did he structure his career to get so much of it? Because, and you hear about so many artists who say they value art over money, and they end up broke or exploited. He clearly didn't.
Right, and that's because he was a master of making these simple, almost unsexy business choices while everyone else was focused on being flashy.
Yeah.
If you just look at the landscape of the 1970s rock scene, it is just littered with stories of debt, impulsive spending, bitter lawsuits, all fueled by these huge egos competing for the biggest headlines or the fastest buck.
And Ringo just sidestepped all of that.
He avoided those rivalry-driven, high-risk ventures completely.
So what were those specific quiet moves that created this enormous value over decades? Let's unpack this.
Well, the first pillar is just consistency. Consistency in generating his own intellectual property, even when the critics were, cold. He consistently released solo albums. I think it's nearly 20 of them across 5 decades.
20 albums, wow.
And even if they weren't all chart toppers, they created a steady stream of new assets. Assets that generate revenue through royalties, licensing, streaming, forever, basically.
That's like a reliable dividend stock, not some speculative high-growth thing. It's low volatility, consistent payout.
Precisely. And this is where the quality of his few compositions becomes so important. Because while Lennon and McCartney's huge catalog was famously tangled up in all these complex legal battles...
The Northern Songs publishing mess, yeah.
Right. Ringo held on to the publishing rights for the handful of songs he wrote or co-wrote, like Don't Pass Me By, and most significantly, Octopus's Garden.
Okay, so why is holding the rights to Octopus's Garden so strategically important for him financially?
Because it's one of the most beloved children's songs ever written by a Beatle. It gets featured in countless compilations, movies, all kinds of media aimed at families.
It's evergreen.
Totally. And that publishing asset, unlike so many other Beatles songs held by outside companies for decades, funnels revenue directly and cleanly back to him and his estate. Every single time it's used, anywhere in the world, it's a clean, reliable annuity.
It's just stunning to think that prioritizing peace, internal peace from legal fights, actually led to a better financial outcome than chasing that creative rivalry.
It completely mirrors that quote of his from 1981, doesn't it? I never played the drums for money. I played because it gave me something nothing else could piece.
Yeah.
And it suggests a profound lesson, I think, for anyone building a long-term career. Sometimes, success is just a side effect of prioritizing sustainable contentment over aggressive competition.
You're less likely to burn out or make some huge financially disastrous mistake if your main motivation isn't a zero-sum race to the top. And that internal motivation, seeking peace and stability, it must have heavily influenced his external strategy, especially inside the total chaos of the Beatles. Let's shift to that strategy of the backbeat. In a band defined by these enormous personalities, Ringo just embraced his lane. He was necessary, but he didn't demand the spotlight.
He was the indispensable structural engineer. I mean, Lennon was the fire and the wit, McCartney was the melody and drive, Harrison brought the spiritual soul.
And
Ringo was the tight, steady foundation. His drumming was never about showing off. It was always about serving the song. He wasn't a soloist. He was more like the silence between the notes that made the whole structure stand up.
The sources mention that a lot, that during the height of Beatlemania, with the crowd screaming so loud they couldn't even hear themselves play,
Right.
Ringo's beat was the only thing holding them all in sync. He was that invisible influence.
Exactly. And he took that philosophy making bridges, providing stability, and he turned it into his post-breakup business model. When the Beatles imploded in 1970, the world was just waiting for this big songwriting rivalry between Lennon and McCartney.
And Ringo didn't play that game.
He didn't engage. Instead, he dropped his 1973 album Ringo, which was a massive success.
What was the strategic genius there?
He used his social capital to heal relationships and turn them into commercial assets. The album featured collaborations from all three other former Beatles, John, Paul, and George.
Which was the only time that happened.
The only time. It was the only post-breakup album where the four of them appeared together, even if it was separately. He positioned himself as the neutral party, the unthreatening collaborator.
So he didn't rush to make a big statement album. He rushed to make a reunion album using everyone else's genius, proving he was the central connector.
It was brilliant. It hit #2 on the Billboard 200, cemented his viability as a solo artist, and maybe more importantly, it solidified his reputation for preserving relationships. Like producer Don West said, Ringo plays for the song. He's never trying to impress, he's trying to elevate.
And by elevating others, they elevated his career in return.
Yes.
And that whole collaboration-first strategy, that really solidified with the All-Star Band in 1989. I mean, that's a touring model that's still generating income decades later.
The All-Star Band is maybe Ringo's greatest contribution to the business model of, the legacy artists. It's a supergroup with a rotating lineup legends like Joe Walsh, Peter Frampton, Steve Lukather, and Ringo's just the benevolent conductor.
So he gets to perform, the audience gets a parade of classic hits from all these different artists.
Then everyone benefits. It's win-win.
But wasn't that reliance on famous friends criticized at the time? I mean, some saw it as coasting on legacy rather than taking real artistic risks.
That's a fair challenge. But if you analyze it purely as a business model, it's incredibly low risk and high return. Ringo doesn't have the pressure to constantly write new chart-topping hits. The demand is based on nostalgia and star power.
And since the lineup rotates every few years, the whole tour package stays fresh for audiences.
Right. It's a sustainable touring engine that avoids the risk of individual burnout while maximizing ticket sales. It lets him hold the beat without needing to sprint constantly.
That ability to maintain the pace, not just musically, but physically, professionally, that's the real long game here. Because by the late 70s, early 80s, so many rock legends were just collapsing.
Financially, professionally, personally. Addiction, burnout, you name it. And Ringo was certainly not immune to that chaos.
No, in fact, he hit his lowest point right alongside them. This is the crucial, often overlooked part of his story. Our sources detail his deep struggles with alcohol dependency in the late 70s and early 80s.
He confessed later that he and his wife were drunk for years, just isolated in Monte Carlo, basically paralyzed by their habits. His career had stalled. This could have been the quiet, tragic end for the Lucky Beatle.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because he didn't make his pivot a public spectacle. He didn't chase headlines for sympathy or coverage. He made this crucial, intensely private decision to just survive.
That pivot in 1988, checking into rehab and committing to sobriety, is arguably the most financially and professionally critical decision of his entire adult life. Everything he's accomplished in the last 35 years, the All-Star Band's success, the continuous touring, the knighthood, it all rests on that one moment of internal discipline.
So if discipline is the foundation of his longevity, what are the actual habits that support an artist touring well into his 80s? We hear about rock stars trashing hotel rooms, but Ringo is now defined by, monastic consistency.
His discipline is the exact opposite of that rock and roll cliche. I mean, he is famously early to rise, committed to daily meditation, and he adopted a clean, plant-based diet back in his 60s. These habits are his new internal rhythm, and they allow his body and mind to withstand the rigors of global touring.
And on the professional side, he also mastered the art of saying no, which is just as crucial as what he says yes to.
Absolutely. He avoids what he calls toxic fame. He keeps his media presence minimal and intentional. He's not constantly chasing relevance or brand deals just for a quick payout. That preservation of self, of his brand integrity, is a long-term value creator.
He also curates his professional environment very intentionally. He famously avoids negative energy.
He treats his work environment like an extension of his personal sanctuary. He works almost exclusively with people who uplift him, which is why the All-Star Band feels less like a hired crew and more like a family reunion. The core insight here is that for maximum endurance, you have to minimize internal friction and external chaos. Success, for him, is often defined simply by maintaining the beat long enough to outlast the competition who have all burned out.
Okay, let's connect this enduring piece to his most famous personal mantra, peace and love. We see the sign, we hear the phrase, but you argue it was more than just a cute slogan. It was a necessary survival code inside the intense fame machine of Beatlemania.
It was leadership by calmness. When you look at the internal tensions that tore the Beatles apart, Ringo was the non-confrontational element. He wasn't driven by the need to prove his songwriting talent or to dominate the studio.
He just wanted to make the project work.
He was driven by the desire to make the current project work, minimizing clashes and maximizing output. He chose compromise over conflict, and that emotional maturity protected him from the drama that just consumed the others.
And that philosophy, that extended directly into his business intuition, didn't it? Prioritizing integrity over an aggressive financial strategy.
It did. The sources recall a specific moment in the 1980s when he turned down a massive commercial endorsement offer. When he was asked why, he just said it didn't feel right. He didn't want his face selling sugar cereal to kids.
He valued his brand's quiet integrity, the idea of being a reliable icon, more than a huge one-time paycheck.
That one decision protected his quiet power. He influences without needing to force himself onto every platform. His power rests on what we might call invisible currencies that, frankly, most modern celebrities just can't claim.
So what are they?
Well, the first invisible currency is trust. 6 decades in the public eye, and he has maintained this remarkably drama-free existence. No major lawsuits against bandmates, no public betrayals, no career-destroying scandals. In the entertainment industry, that level of reliability is gold.
The second is timelessness. He's gracefully accepted modern formats, streaming, licensing, even dipping into NFTs without ever diluting the core identity of Ringo Starr. He adapts the tech to his brand, not the other way around.
And the third, and maybe most important, is symbolism. The peace sign, the sunglasses, the easy smile. They became cultural shorthand for joy, approachability, and non-toxic masculinity.
He didn't need to chase relevance. He became a cultural symbol simply by remaining joyful and kind.
Exactly. His 2018 knighthood, Sir Ringo Starr, was specifically for services to music and charity, which explicitly recognizes his value beyond just performance volume.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Ringo Starr's $350 million legacy fundamentally challenges the modern obsession with being the loudest voice or demanding the spotlight or defining your value by how fast you start. His power, like a backbeat, is felt. It guides everything, but it rarely demands attention.
I think his greatest victory wasn't landing the gig with the Beatles. It was his quiet internal comeback in 1988, choosing health, discipline, and sustained purpose over chaos. He didn't need to be recognized as the most technically gifted player in the world. He just needed to be the steadiest player who lasted long enough to truly matter.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, in an age that's just obsessed with constant viral attention, Ringo's enduring success suggests that true generational power is built on reliability and consistency, on a steady hand and maybe a humble heart. So here's the thought for you. How might your own definition of professional success change if you prioritize finding your steady rhythm and minimizing unnecessary drama over chasing momentary applause?
Find your beat.
And we'll catch you on the next deep dive.